There we go.
All right. Well, I guess we'll start this one off. So, firstly, Vicky, I just want to thank you for inviting SoldierOn to come in today and have a chat to you guys and the university and students. As we go on, I have no doubt people will come in more and more to find out, but we'll just put the presentation out and let people watch it as it goes on. People have the opportunity to go back and watch this recording if need be as well. So today, the purpose of this meeting is to kind of educate the members of your university about veterans, their perspectives and that modern day view, and give them a bit of an insight and some context. As you talked about, a lot of people are international students, and it's just providing that education about sort of the ups, the downs, the challenges that people have while serving, ex-serving, and that impact it can have on families. So we've developed a presentation today with a video, which will obviously show up now. So I'm just going to be able to. So today's presentation will be presenting, with myself and Beck. So Beck and I come from two different backgrounds. I'm a serving veteran, and Beck's come into the SoldierOn space with her knowledge to assist veterans and families where we're going with things. Today's topics. So we're going to be going over a bit of my defence background, and that's going to include life in the ADF, deployment to Afghanistan, the effects of coming home, life after defence, the ANZAC culture and the importance of keeping the history alive. The views of the modern day veteran in conversation with a veteran, which is going to be quite important to go over, and then SoldierOn and how we support veterans and families moving forward. So, just one second, I'm just trying to get rid of the screen. So, life in the ADF, enlistment. So, as you know, Vicky, enlistment into the ADF varies from role to role. This can be a simple 6-month process up to 2 years. It can take quite some time. Throughout your enlistment, you'll conduct psychometric, medical, and physical testing to ensure you're the correct candidate for the Australian Defence Force. It's quite a vigorous testing period. I did it at 17, so for a kid like myself, I didn't know what I was sort of getting into at the time. So that was obviously quite the experience. So when we go into training, no matter what your role is when you enlist, every member will conduct your basic training. The aim of the training is to break you down from a civilian and build you back up as a soldier, sailor, or airman. And that would involve, not stripping you of your values, but you'll be shown drill, you'll be shown all these different things to put the defence values into you and obviously make you part of the Defence Force by the end of your basic training. Everyone that marches out of basic training comes out as a basic soldier, a sailor or airman, and then from there they'll go into their employment training. So once your basic training is complete, all members will conduct specific training. That's in the form of employment training. This can last anywhere from 3 months up to 2 years, depending on your role. So as an example of this, so as a rifleman like myself, it took me 4 months to complete my employment training, where if you're becoming like a pilot for a fighter jet, it can take up to 2 years. So just to show you the varying differences when it comes to, training for that specific role. So the yearly conduct for the unit. So during my time at my unit as a rifleman, depending on what cycle we were in, would depend on what we were doing for the year. So we had our reset phase, which was post-deployment or post going on operations overseas, where you'd be kind of refitting, retraining to being at a certain compliancy. You would have the readying year, which would see us going on vigorous training exercises to, tick certain boxes. And then we'd have the operational year, which would see us go on like operations where it was to other countries or warlike operations like, Afghanistan, Iraq. So on an average year, our unit would conduct training exercises to maintain the proficiency in our trades. So, there's a level of retraining to make sure we're still concurrent and can still perform the role. So as much as some trades don't need too much retraining, it's obviously it's quite important to make sure you can still do the job and be ever changing, because I guess in the form of combat and the military, it's an ever-changing situation that we must adapt to. So these training exercises would see us head outfield for 6 months plus. And that would be across all various countries and training exercises in Australia. So, for example, I would be potentially doing training in South Australia. I could be training in Brisbane or up north of Brisbane. There's a variety of training areas across Australia for this. Okay, then we go into deployment to Afghanistan. So I was I was employed overseas as a force protection element. So I was tasked with protecting high-ranking officials so they could perform their role in training the Afghan National Army to combat the Taliban. My deployment spanned over a 7.5 month period with a 2 week R&R period, which got me to, you have the option to either go home and see your family or go overseas and see a different country. You have that flexibility there. Overall, I had a really quite positive. Sorry, I had quite a positive experience, but our unit didn't see any combat. So this was due to High Command not approving certain missions or our tasks being non-combat related. It didn't mean nothing didn't happen. There was combat still going on in Kabul, so it was still an active war zone. There was still stuff happening, but we weren't specifically targeted by any member of like combative enemy. So coming home, there was a lot of mixed feelings coming home from overseas. A lot of the force that went over there was quite excited to go home. It's been 7 months since we'd seen our families, our friends, and it's a completely different way of life over there. So a lot of us was keen to go back home and have the normalities you don't get to see over in a country like Afghanistan. In the back of my mind, I had this thought in my head that I would never get to experience something like this ever again. And even that, it still follows me to this day. Like I still have moments where I always want to go back over to Afghanistan because it was such a fantastic experience. I got to learn so much. I got to work with so many different nations across the world. It's kind of like that one-off experience. So once I got back to Australia, I had a feeling of dissatisfaction and I wanted to go back to Afghanistan, as I mentioned before. It's like I hit this pinnacle point in my career. Like the job that I was training for, that was the job that I was doing. So to come back to Australia and feel like I wasn't fulfilling that anymore, it just felt this level of dissatisfaction. So I missed, the routine. I missed the lifestyle at all, the pay, which paid quite considerably well for the danger that you were in. And as I discussed, that fulfillment of doing the job that I trained for. I trained really hard to do this job, and I was putting that practice into effect overseas. So I'm now going to show you guys a video. I'll just see. Please do let me know if you guys can see the video. You guys see this?
I'm just see the presentation at the moment. Yeah.
Yep. We'll just see if I can change this up. So I'm just going to do this now. So I'm just going to show you a presentation. This is just to give you a bit of context of, what I talked about. So this is my deployment to Afghanistan. Like in this video, I'll do a bit of commentation through it, but you'll see sort of like a bit of daily life, what we're doing over there, how we were going about our job, which we obviously dictate in this. So enjoy.
Hey, Matt, just so you know that we're not getting any sound through the video.
What was that again, Vicky?
We're actually not getting any sound coming through the video
Oh, at all.
at all.
Right. That's a good one. Unsure a little why.
Did you select the share sound button when you shared the screen, or?
We'll go back to it and have a little look. Sorry, as you can tell.
That's fine.
So, share sound. Would everyone like to watch the video again?
Yeah, it might actually help with the sounds.
Yep. So I'll play it again for you guys. Look, at any point if you can't hear anything, you need any clarification, do let me know, and I'm happy to obviously go over these points for you guys. So please let me know if you can hear the music or the audio for this.
No sound, Matt. Yep. Can hear it now.
All right.
We'll see how we go. We'll do it at the end if we've got time. It just shit goes quick when before we roars it.
So I'm just going to take it back to the presentation now, guys. So give me a second. All right, you guys can all see the presentation again. All right, so just to put a little bit of context, our role over there was protecting high-ranking officials, which meant me trailing around a high-ranking officer, providing them protection so they could effectively do their role in training the Afghan National Army. We also did jobs where we were doing protection of our base. As you can see from the videos, we're in a big concrete tower. And then our last role was we had different tasking. So sometimes we'd have to go out and help choppers come in, so provide that protection element, which you've seen. Other times we'd be going down to the front gate of our base to go pick up interpreters so they could help translate the Afghan National Army and the NATO forces over there. So now stepping into here, so we're going to go now life after defense. So just one second. So life after defense, discharging. So we like to call it discharging, but discharging from the military. So when you're separating from beginning to end, it can take up to a year. So this is from full-time service. This will first start with telling your superior, high command, or your management that you're looking to separate from the military. After the 6-month mark, you will then commence your appointments, beginning with your medical, psychological, physical, you're handing back your equipment. You'll be seeing, it's called transition teams. Now, their whole job is to pretty much talk about your decision, make sure it's the right thing for you, make sure you're lined up and have everything together. So you're just gonna leave the military and fall over. So they're like, do you have a job? Do you have everything set up? Is your family looked after? Where are you going? Are you going to be moving to another state? So we're not going to talk about some of the ups with being in defense. So when you separate from the military, it gives you a range of opportunities that you can't obviously access while in the military. And this is, I'm mostly speaking full-time here, because when you sign up for a full-time contract, your whole life is defense. You don't have anything outside of that. So some of the perks once you leave can be, you can work in a location of your choosing. So you're not bound by contract. You have a say in where you'd like to go work. So let's just say I finish my job in Sydney, or I finish my time in defense in Sydney. I can move wherever I want. I can work in whatever location, and I have freedom to do that. Now, the hours you work is the hours you'll get paid for. So what I mean by that is, you're on a salary base with defense, and there'll be times where you can work up to 24 hours, depending on the working task, and you won't get paid a cent extra. So depending on the role that you're performing and what you're doing, you won't get additional money for what you're doing. So go to a job where you're working like a casual or a part-time, you get paid usually penalty rates or overtime, depending on the day you work. In defense, there's none of that. Now, you're not bound by contract, so it gives you that flexibility to say no. So if a work comes up to you and says, we need you to do this, you have the flexibility to realistically say no, okay? Where in defense, you don't have a say. So if someone comes up and gives you an order, you have to follow that task out. Otherwise, you can be liable for military charges, you could say. So you'll be punished in accordance with the military law. So you can follow a career path with relevant progression. So within defense, there's obviously progression to go up in, higher management, for example. So you can go up from being a private soldier like I was, to a supervisor, to a managing supervisor, all the way up to, being in charge of up to 50 people. Now, the only issue is it takes quite a long time to get to that point. It can take you 15 years, 20 years, 30 years to get to a certain rank. And depending if the roles are available, they might not come up at all. So when you go out into civilian street, you have the flexibility to choose organizations where you can see relevant career progression, and you really choose what that looks like. So if I want to go within my role in SoldierOn, if a vacancy pops up, I can apply for that straight away. Whether I'm qualified or not, I still have the option to put an application in. So you have more of a gentle work approach, and that comes back to, having more of a say in what you can do. People in the civilian sector are a lot more friendly and giving, where in defense, as I said, you do not have much of a say. And I guess people can get quite angry if you say no. So when you go to a civilian workforce, you can expect that people are going to be more open to flexibility. For example, working with SoldierOn, I've had the ability to work from home due to obviously the pandemic out there. Where in defense, I wouldn't have that option because I'm still an essential, I guess you could say, worker. I'd still be required to go in. And I guess that touches on the last one there, which is more realistic expectations from your work colleagues. So you're gonna be set a task that is, I guess, achievable. There was some days in defence where they would set us tasks we knew we couldn't manage it, and we told them this, but at the end of the day, because it was an order, we had to follow it. So especially the officers, which are people that had to go through specialist training to get that that I guess position, some days will give you expectations that may not be achievable. So it's you know, you can expect within the civilian workforce more realistic expectations where if someone offers you a task, you know that, you know, within your capability, you can do that. Now we're going to go touch on the post-defense and the downs. So as much as there's a lot of good leaving defense, it also has its moments where there's a lot of downs. So when you separate from full-time service, it can pose the challenges, and that's also touching on, you know, full-time defense and part-time, because Vicky, being an Army reservist, would know what it's like to transition out of part-time defense and the challenges that can face. And same thing with the full-time service. So there's a mix of challenges and downs when you do separate from that. So there's a loss of community and routine, and that is a massive thing for defence members. You know, you build friendships in defence that I can't honestly say I've made anywhere else. So when you're cold, you're wet, you're tired, you've been sleeping in your same clothing for a month, the biggest thing that is keeping you getting through all that is the people to your left and right. So you build this camaraderie that you just can't build anywhere else. Because you're going through, I guess, sometimes such hard conditions that you form such great bonds and relationships there, and you can have a laugh about it later on. You know, I used to love coming back from doing a field X, which was us going out to an exercise area doing training and having a laugh and a beer out about it afterwards. So then we go into adaptation to the civilian street. Being in defence is a very closed off book. You don't really see much of outside of defence. So it's very hard to grasp it, and like especially for the people that join younger, like myself, I joined at 17. So when I did separate, I was like, now what? I didn't have any idea what I was going into. I'd had no previous education. You know, when you go to university and do a 4-year bachelor, you come out with a degree. I was coming out of 4 years in defence with no qualifications, because it's very hard to be someone who had a weapon and would be, you know, doing a certain job to how does that translate out? You know, it's not something in civilian street that's very advertised. It's a very niche trade in the civilian sector. So, and this is where it falls into the lack of knowledge of the civilian street, where in defence, you have free medical, free dental, all that stuff is covered. You can provide support to your family where, you know, I didn't know how to utilize a Medicare card, how to have private health insurance, how I could provide for my family. So the lack of knowledge there can be a really hard grasp when going into civilian street, where people that have been out of school, you know, it's there. It's just common knowledge but for defence, it's not that. So I talked about it, but loss of free medical and dental. Now, I have had certain injuries that have been covered by defence, which could cost up to 10 grand upwards. So large sums of money, but it's covered by defence because obviously I'm a member with them and I'm under that coverage there. So when you, let's just say, break a tooth, defence would cover that. But if it was out in civilian street, it's going to cost out of your own pocket. So just an example of some of the things, some of the benefits you get while serving in a full-time military. So having to reskill to get into different employment opportunities. So when I left, I realized that I had to reskill in a range of areas. So, you know, doing English, just simple writing, how to write an email, write a letter, writing up a CV, you know, stuff I really taken for granted and I didn't understand. Having to write a CV and I didn't have that experience doing it was really hard. So, having to reskill and try to understand what the civilian sector expects from you is a really challenging thing that a lot of veterans face. And it doesn't matter whether you serve 4 years or 35 years, a lot of people feel exactly the same. That's all across your Army, Air Force and Navy. So lastly is stepping down on salaries as your certain qualifications may not transfer. So that's where I talk about, you know, as I said, I was carrying a weapon for 4 years, where in civilian street, I guess the only relevant way that translate over is to a security officer, which doesn't pay as well. So some days you'd find people having to step down in pay and go into a different trade. So they'd be losing money, losing that valuable experience they've gained in defence because it's just not recognised in the civilian sector. So it's such an eye-opening experience for defence members coming out. So it's quite hard. You know, I've felt it. A lot of other people will feel it. So yeah. Now we will be going on to the ANZAC culture and the importance of keeping that history alive. So bit of historic background here. So the Australian New Zealand Army Corps, aka ANZAC, made its place in the world on the cliffs of Gallipoli in 1915. They were fighting a superior force at the time. You know, they landed in horrible conditions in the wrong area and they made the best of their situation. Now, despite the campaign being a catastrophic failure, none of their goals got met. What it did do was sprouted a culture of courage, bravery, integrity, and importantly, mateship, which is just it's which the Anzacs would be renowned of for in conflicts to come. So even today, these values have followed us all the way through to now. So the Anzacs would prove themselves time and time again for being ferocious fighters, and this would include the Second World War, the Korean War, Vietnam, Iraq, and more recently Afghanistan, which, you know, comes back to those previous values of us, you know, having courage, bravery, and most importantly, mateship. You know, we may have been ferocious fighters, but at the end of the day, we loved each other and our mates. And that's the biggest selling point for us, is our mates are the most important thing. So I guess today's veterans, keeping the ANZAC spirit alive is seen as important because it's been a crucial part of the Australian New Zealand foundations and way of life. Every ANZAC Day on the 25th of April, which is the anniversary of when the Anzacs stormed the beaches of Gallipoli, we all come together as veterans, you know, family members of veterans, and share a drink, have a laugh, remember memories of our service, so all the funny stories, all the hard times, the bad times, and have a laugh about it. And most importantly, remember those that sacrificed everything, you know, for the country of, you know, New Zealand and Australia. So now we go into, I guess, the views of modern day veteran. Now, I can't speak for all veterans here, but I try to speak for the general day veteran. So it will differ from person to person. Like any organization, you know, university, workplace, people come from different backgrounds and share different values. Now, a common theme I've seen in veterans is a strong dependence on mateship and community, having the safe space to talk about their unique experience and feel welcome. Most veterans just want to be able to talk about their experience and feel comfortable with that, because it's such a unique experience, whether it's going to Afghanistan, going out to a field exercise. You know, it's a very hard thing to articulate outside of defense. So we like to feel in a space where we can feel welcome and talk about it. Another one is a passion for their job and service. Now, whether veterans are open to talk about it or not, majority of those that are served are proud. So whether that's on exercise, on domestic response operations like your bushfires, your floods, on international operations, going over to Malaysia to do exercises with different militaries, or on warlike operations to Afghanistan, Iraq, and so forth. And I think the last one is having a sense of purpose. You know, it's something that's ingrained to us from day dot, from basic training for our whole careers, is that sense of purpose where we're all working towards a common goal. Okay, we're always seeking the next task to meet that common objective, you know, and that's from clearing an area of any combatants to successfully completing a mission and bringing everyone home safe. You know, we all work towards that common goal, and that's what a lot of people like defense members seek when they get out of defense. So they want to be able to continue to find tasks and do their jobs to meet that common objective. Now, this is something that's going to be really pertinent for you guys. So in conversation with a veteran, there might be a point where you meet a veteran in your university, you might bump into them in a civvy street. So, you know, you may be like bump into someone, and there's a few things like misconceptions that people have of veterans. And I guess this is what I'm here to try and provide a bit of guidance, a bit of advice. So veterans, like most people, just want to feel welcome. Like anyone else, they generally just want to be treated the same. We don't want to be treated anyone like any different or highlighted any different for our service. We just want to be like every single other person, just, I guess, a sheep in the pool. Don't assume, like the movies, that all veterans suffer from PTSD. It's a very misconception that Hollywood paints this, that a veteran has PTSD coming back from a while. Like, I've been to Afghanistan. I've seen some photos. I've seen some stuff over there that I guess was bad, but I don't have PTSD. Okay, and the rate of PTSD in defense or even across the world is quite low. So, you know, on the off chance that you ever do come across someone with PTSD, try to treat them like anyone else. They'll let you know if you've stepped out of line or they don't want to talk about this any further, and they'll just be honest with you. So don't ask a veteran if it has ever killed anyone. It's seen as offensive because it's such a weird question to ask, and most veterans here will hesitate to answer that question. I've had people ask me, "Have you ever killed anyone?" And personally, I don't take too much offense to it, but I know some people that get quite angry. So try to avoid that question. You know, if someone's ever willing to talk about their service, they will. Okay, I've talked to veterans that have talked openly about taking people's lives, but they've talked about it I've never probed that question. I've never asked them, have you killed anyone? So just avoid that question completely. If someone's willing to open up about their experience, they will then go from there. And lastly, it is okay to ask someone about their service and their experience. There's nothing wrong with that, but don't probe that person if they don't feel like going into detail. So if I'm happy to talk about it, fantastic, but don't be like, tell me more when I'm not giving you anything. So if someone says, oh, just tell me more about your Afghanistan, it's not that bad, and I'm just going to close off and I'm not going to want to talk to anyone. So don't push the point. Some veterans are really happy to discuss their experience, while others may not be want to associate themselves as ex-serving members or even current serving for that matter. So some of the people that you might come across still might be serving in the Defence Force. I know people that have study degrees while serving full-time, studied while doing part-time. So, you may meet people that are still currently serving. So if they're happy to talk about it, fantastic. But if they're not, don't just try and push the matter. Now, we'll get to a point in the presentation where we ask, we're going to ask for any questions here, and you can ask me about anything at all from my experience if you want me to go into any further detail of anything. So please, if you do have any questions, send them my way now.
My question is, Matt, for you personally, what was the hardest bit going from like being active service into civilian life? Like when you're doing the whole transition where they step it down bit by bit, which part was the hardest for you?
Are you talking about like the tests, or like when we first get out of defense?
When you first get out and you're stepping back into Civvy Street.
I think the biggest thing for me is not having my mates around. Like I saw my mates every single day. We'd have a laugh. We'd talk crap about everything, but I didn't have my mates around to, have a good talk with. And I was in an environment where I didn't know if people were okay with defense members. So adjusting, like not having my mates there and being able to talk, or like, you have a bad day, you can't just go up to your mate and, have a laugh about it because they're not with you anymore. So really, as I said, that sense of community was kind of gone for me. So adjusting, and I'd gone from working in full-time defense, working a 9-to-5 job, to working night shifts. So, all my friends were either not awake or not available to talk to. So it was quite hard not having people to, have a conversation with that I got along with. So apologies, guys. It's a busy one all the time.
Yep. Yeah, because I just know for me personally, when we were doing the transition back to civilian life, the worst part for me personally, even though I was Army Reserve, was the fact that I wasn't giving a brief as to what I was expected to do anymore.
Yeah, there's that level of miseducation. Like, there's no education for members getting out. Like people, like in the transition seminars, people will what's the word? They'll provide you so much information, but they won't give you an expectation of what to expect. So, within defense, people always are like, we're going to be doing a tasking. These are going to be your likely expectations. So there's always sort of a generalized, this is what you may expect, be prepared. We're going to Civvy Street. They don't really give you much of an education point. And, I guess within our job now, it's our job to tell people more or less how they can be more prepared for civilian street stuff they may expect. And I'm not here to paint I'm not trying to say the grass is greener. Like I'm happy to paint the real picture of what civilian street is like. Civilian street can be quite hard. You guys being university students and experience it all, it is a hard thing to get your head wrapped around. For something that may be normal for you guys, for someone like defense, it's such a closed book. It's such a scary thought. So yeah, it's just a matter of having that education about what people are entitled to, what they may expect, and how to talk in civilian street as well. You may know this, Vicky, but we swear a lot in defense, and that's not us trying to be rude. It's from day dot in basic training ingrained into us. They swear, it's just normal. And it's not us trying to be rude, but
I get told off for it constantly.
And that's my point.
Like we're not in we're in polite company. We can't be swearing all the time, and it's doubly hard for me because I come from defense where that's normal. Plus, I'm also a Scot. So having the sentence enhancers, I'm not allowed to use them anymore.
Exactly right.
And it's just a really difficult thing to kind of like change your whole language style as well, because that's the thing that you'll know firsthand being in defense, that like when we usually use a lot of profanity, it means that we're not messing around. This needs to be done right now. Like, and it's basically just us using those words is like amplify the sense of urgency of things that need to be happening. Where where if you do it in like the civilian like environment, people are like, why are you swearing at me? I kind of get the point. Why are you doing this? And
I think even as well, Vicky, saying please. People in defence don't say please.
Nope.
You know, if they ask, they're like, look, can you do this tasking? You're like, yeah, no worries. So
And not only that, but there is no sir and madam in defence. Everybody's sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just a very different environment, and it's like learning a new thing. So it takes so much time and experience to change a certain behavior way. So, you know, for example, if you go to the gym, you know, you have to do a certain workout so many times for your body to be used to it. Like defense, you got to train your brain to acclimatize to the civilian street, you know, not swearing as much, asking please, and sometimes like using that profound language. So it's an adjustment phase. Is there any other questions, guys? Anything defense related, anything like transitional that, you know, you would like to like having answered?
I think the only other question I've got is like, what can we do as student leaders to probably make the transition easier for someone that's going from like defense life to civilian?
It could just be as simple as, you know, how you finding things. Could be asking the simple question, how are you finding it since out of defense? Are you doing all right? Do you need any help? Or even talk about what's worked for you. You know, studying, going from a full-blown defense environment, we don't study in defense. You know, once we're jobs are like, my job is mostly using my hands. So you could be like, oh, look, studying what's worked best for me is doing this, or even just asking him, like sitting him down, like, hey mate, how you going? Like, how you feeling since leaving defense? And just be like, I can appreciate it's hard to transition out. So, you know, is everything going okay? Do you need any help? How are you finding university? It could be there's simple questions like that.
Yeah, because I found personally that, like you mentioned before, that when we're in defense, we're not really trained in a certain set of skills or anything like that, which again is a really big stereotype when way too many people watching movies. So so the way that I've dealt with it, like after coming out of defense, is that I'm actually doing a Bachelor of Security Studies in Tactical Analysis. So basically everything that I've learnt being on the field, I just have to, rather than doing it on the field now, I'm having to find my words to use to do it that way around. But it doesn't work for everybody that way either. So like some people, because some people just want to separate from that whole experience altogether. And there's others that like that just trying to find a way to try and mash the two.
Yeah. Well, I think a big thing for defense members, and this is part of our role now of SoldierOn to help tell people about this, but we're trainable. You know, part of our role is to go into an environment, we're in a training environment, and we're smashed usually for the first 6 to 7 months of our defense career is about training, learning and developing skills. I found for me is if someone shows me how to do something, I'll generally write notes or take a mental picture and then I'll apply that myself. We call it the Soldiers 5, where you can provide a 5-minute presentation to people. They can pick up those points or like the I guess what they're trying to teach that person. They'll pick it up and then run with it. So most people, if you show them a small guide, will learn that skill and then try to apply themselves. So we are adaptable people, and that's why like it's just that simple thing. Be like, you know, I found studying this way has really helped me. You know, it may work for you. So this is how I find it. And that could be like highlight your priorities, you know, prioritization, simple stuff like that. Like when I stepped into this job within SoldierOn, I'd been still working in full like physical blown jobs. So, you know, going into a corporate space, I had to learn really quickly, you know, what is a priority? How do I prioritize tasks? And just simply people helping me and guiding me and showing me some small tips and tricks has really helped me integrate. So as much as I haven't studied a degree, I haven't gone to TAFE University to re-educate in that sense, but, you know, taking people's advice and being like, what's worked for you? So you guys just going up and be like, hey, this has worked. If it works for you, fantastic. If not, then that's fine too. So.
And I think in a university environment too, you're set up for peer groups as well. You know, we have small student groups and collaboration is such a big word. And from a defence background, it's all team orientated. So now you're still in a team orientated. And one of the buzzwords with university is feedback. And soldiers respond.
Feedback and engagement. Yeah.
Correct. Really well to feedback. So as long as they feel that that's a safe space, and a peer network is a safe space too. And university like Western Sydney has people from quite diverse backgrounds, and it's very unique, and it's sort of a point of difference that would attract somebody into that space as well, because they have a point of difference as well. So it's a great opportunity of, here's a peer network, here's a safe space that my peer network's going to give me feedback. I can reflect on that feedback, which is what I've done in service as well, and take some pointers, like Matt said, and apply it to the worker, because we are fast learners. We know how to learn on our feet and practically take that feedback and move forward. So it's almost for a transitioning, or for a veteran, it's a perfect spot to go, because it is that ability to build up team again, from a diverse background, and be accepting of feedback. So it's a huge opportunity. So, and we'll move on to some of the Soldier On slides, and we are encouraging lots of transitioning Australian Defence Force to think about formal tertiary education on transition now, to sort of provide these networks, as well as the upskilling and the uplift of the individual as well. So sorry, Matt, I'll hand back.
That's okay. Like there is roughly 6,000 people transitioning out of defence each year. That's a large number of people. And, our aim at the moment is just to encourage people to go into these environments, because we need to build up a new sense of community. We need to build up a new normal for us, because that normal is obviously not there anymore. So encouragement into these groups, come jump on board, come meet the team, come learn what we've learned, and the thing is, you don't know what you don't know. And that's a big thing in defence. If you don't know it, how can you apply it? So even you guys being like, look, we have a community group that, we do this on certain days to learn about a certain subject. Come join. And having that sense of community and feeling welcome, like, it's such a great thing for a lot of defence members. So, encourage those people. I guess, as Beck said, we're going to go into sort of what we do within SoldierOn now. So we, as an organisation, are a non-for-profit, and us being an ex-service organisation, a lot of our team are either ex-serving veterans, still current serving veterans, partners, spouses, and family members. So we have a broad range of people that are able to share our unique experience with veterans and families to make them feel more welcome. So we've got our mission down the bottom, so enabling serving and ex-serving veterans and families to thrive in whatever capacity they see that. Now, a little bit about our story within SoldierOn is, as you've seen, we're a non-for-profit support organisation that deliver a holistic range of services to both serving, ex-serving, family members, spouses. As in more recent times, we have now become a national organisation spreading out to every single major city across Australia, and now even starting into smaller towns. So more or less, wherever a massive base is or massive defence presence, we try to be located somewhat near that to provide that service. At the current time, SoldierOn currently reaches out to more than 8,000 Australians, veterans and their families, offering obviously the support services, including a range of mental health and wellbeing, employment support and education programs, as well as activities focused on connections with families, friends, and the broader community. At SoldierOn, we continue to adapt to meet the needs of defence personnel. As I said, defence is always changing, values are always changing, so we have to keep up to meet that contemporary veteran and family. So providing that service to the whole family is such a crucial part, so everyone's getting accommodated, whether it's as simple as come join our social connections and come meet other veterans and families and build that sense of community. I guess our mission over the next 5 years, why does SoldierOn need to exist? There's so many people transitioning out of defence, and the younger veterans experience different values as the older veterans would experience. So we as an organisation need to keep up and meet the demand for the new veteran. And that means us going out to bases, meeting new veterans, meeting the teams they're helping transition, serving and ex-serving, and providing our support and education there. So, we're going to be here to enable the serving and the ex-serving veterans and their families to thrive, whether it's in their careers, education, or building that next sense of community. What will SoldierOn's philosophy do for veterans? We're here to try and improve their lives and give them the best chance of their next career, and whatever that may be for them. Okay, here's some of our locations, as you can see now. So we've got anywhere from your Darwin, Perth to Adelaide. We're pushing down to more your local areas like Sale, Kiama, Manly. More recently as well, we've just pushed up to Townsville, which has a massive defence experience. Vicky would know about this. There's a lot of army up that way. So, getting our feet in there will be able to help a lot of veterans too. So as you can see, we utilize the help model to assist our veterans and families, and the services there being health and wellbeing, employment support, learning and education programs, and participation in social activities. And as you can see, our services are stretching further and further and further as the time goes. Now, just touching on more about our health and wellbeing services. So health and wellbeing stands for that psychological support. We have psychologists on hand to provide, I guess, assistance for a lot of veterans, because a lot of veterans may need help transitioning or, articulating their experience. So whether it's been from overseas or with the military and, adapting the civilian street. So we have those services there to provide that, not just for the veteran, but for the family member too, because it's quite hard for them too. Employment transitions and support, which is my role. So I help veterans with their CVs, their cover letters, linking those veterans to relevant employment, and I guess guiding them in careers, setting goals for them to meet so they can have the best chance at, I guess, thriving in their next career, whatever that may be. Then we go into Beck's role, which is learning and education programs, where we have registered training organisations that provide reduced cost courses for the veterans and families to help them reskill, as we discussed before, so they can reskill and then go for their next career path, whatever that may be. And then the last one, which is massive and growing more and more.
Hang on, Matt. Sorry,
Go
just
on.
going back to in Vicky's space as well. A lot of them then are looking at from a base education, maybe a transition into university now as well. So, and the universities are offering support and RPL, a recognition of prior learning, to make the pathway in for transitioning and veterans a lot easier, and the actual process a lot easier for them as well.
And then
Sorry, go on.
No, that's okay. And then the last one is participation in social activities. Now, I met the SoldierOn team on a social connections activity. Now, before I joined the actual team itself, I jumped on a sailing boat with one of my mates who said, come on board. And, veterans talking to veterans spread this word, and I jumped on it. And that's where I got to meet a lot of the team. And when I moved up to New South Wales, I met more of the team, and that's where I fell into the role. So the simple thing of just coming together and meeting different veterans, meeting the SoldierOn staff, because as I said, a lot of us are either ex-serving, still currently serving, a family member of a veteran, or a spouse. So having that ability, and we could do a range of roles too, which could be paintball, axe throwing, indoor skydiving. There's a range of activities out there for the veterans and families to have that sense of community, feel like they're, doing something together.
There's also a bit of cake baking and some softer skills too. We're not all axe throwing and
That's just highlighting some of our more exciting.
There's activities for families as well. So we have social gatherings where we might have, a coffee catch up down at the local park. So partners of still serving defence members can come together and have a connection and, support each other through, whether it's childcare or the transition back to work from them if they've been stay-at-home parents for a while as well. So just trying to build up those social networks amongst their own networks as well, just supporting that.
But yeah, I think just touching on what Beck said, some days the best results I've ever found with a veteran is just catching up with them, having a coffee with them, just having a coffee and spinning a yarn about their experience, having a laugh about it, about the dumb times we had, the hard times we had, and just that simple thing of that community is so important to the veteran community. So that participation and social connections element is such a big part of what we do, and we're only ever growing. So, okay. And here, just to give you a bit of volume about what we've done, or even context to some of the veterans we've helped, here's a bit of a diagram. So, we've got over 8,000 people in our program. A lot of our audience are male, but we're encouraging more females to come on board because we're here to provide the service to everyone. Doesn't matter what gender we are, what your values are. We're here to support we're here to provide that holistic approach to everyone. So, we've seen a 30% increase in participants. We've had over 10,000 jobs added to our jobs board where veterans can look and potentially apply for their future careers. We have obviously over 1,600 jobs still open. From Beck's hard work, Beck's gotten over 300 courses added to the SoldierOn education program. The education team is working very hard, and with the universities, which is such a crucial point to get, degree qualifications for serving, ex-serving members, or even still serving. So we've had more organisations that support the veteran community by signing up to the pledge. Now, the pledge program is where an organisation makes an agreement with SoldierOn to support the veteran community through recruitment, training and development and that cultural awareness. So understanding more about the veterans like you guys are today, asking how they can recruit veterans better and keep them in the organization through that training and development, and really giving them that best opportunity with getting into the next career. We've grown massively in the last couple of years. We've gone from like 20 staff up to 80 now, and we're growing more and more. So as we grow as an organization, where our intention is to put the word out to more veterans and families so they have, I guess, more opportunities, because we just want to be able to educate them on what they can utilize, and they can obviously decide where that goes from there. So we've had over almost 6,000 instances of employment education support. And as I said, that's from your CV support to interview coaching to even linking someone to an employer. Okay, there's a range of different ways we help that veteran partner. We've had over 333 people placed in jobs, and over almost 190, I think we're up to 200 now, Becca, if I'm not wrong, companies signing up to the pledge to support the veteran and partner. So as you can see by the bottom, we have the different statuses, which comes from bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, which shows the different levels of support they provide to the veteran and partners. We've had over, I'll go on, Beck.
Sorry, I was just going to say a bit of oversight for Vicky too. So in terms of pledge partners, so we're talking people like Boeing are offering pledge support to, and we're just trialing our first with Boeing support mentoring program. So this might be something down the track next year to consider with, our veterans considering a degree, is that they come into our mentoring program at the same time that they're starting their degree, and then they have the support of somebody with defence background who supports them through their progress through the degree as well. So the idea is we've just started our first cohort, and we'll run a second cohort this year through the mentoring program, and then this will happen on a sort of a potentially in line with the university's semester scheduling to support people through this. So almost like a student success advisor, but it's somebody with a defence background or somebody from one of our pledge companies, which then offers a pathway to potential employment once you finish your degree as well. So that space is really starting to open up.
So it's like pretty much a partnership of education and employment at the end. So
yeah, it's like a pathway program.
Yeah, so the veteran gets that full holistic approach to, we're going to train you, and then by the end of it, you should have a job at the end of this too. So that honestly, like after talking to a lot of veterans, it just gives them that sense of satisfaction knowing that they have an opportunity or they have a leg to stand on when they do get out. So we've helped, I guess here we've had over 800 activities providing a range of things, and especially in COVID times, COVID really posed a different dynamic to us where, we were stuck at home for 9 months. And we're only just, even further, when you talk to Beck, she's been at home for a long, long time, but, we've still kept going as an organization, and if anything, grown bigger and bigger and bigger. We were doing tiramisu classes, empanada classes at home, still being able to provide the, our, I guess, SoldierOn participants an opportunity to still engage with us in a range of ways. So, but I think if this is not wrong, this is it. So that's today's, I guess, PowerPoint, and, just a little bit about how we've gone in supporting veterans and families. If you guys do have any further questions, I do encourage you to ask away, but, thank you very much for jumping on board and listening to myself speak and looking at, my time and service. Thank you, Beck, as well, for coming on board and having a chat and being able to provide your assistance as well.
And thanks to Vicky and your March On team.
Thank you. Yeah, we actually raised about 3,500, I think, by the end of it.
Right.
I'm still recovering. So no, because I was actually doing CrossFit games in the middle of March On as well, like right before I got my medical news. So yeah, like we were just like doing all the walking, and then I was having my CrossFit games, going back to the walking, and my body's just yelling at me now, going, "Yep, we've stopped, but why did we stop? This is so."
Well, thank you. We appreciate the funds.
Oh, good.
Really valued, and put, as you can see, where the dollars are going in the organisation is in that sort of really national approach now.
Well, I've been working alongside SoldierOn now for about 9 years.
Yep.
Because I also do a lot of work with the New Zealand veterans in Australia as well, and support their work. yeah, like Matt said, some of the best conversations that you have is just sitting with the old boys and like over a coffee or whatever. Had one story from one of the veterans that I spoke to. He's 102 and his service was in Singapore, and he was basically telling me all about the liberation of Changi and things like that, where they were going, oh, like the prisoners of war, we're going to be here for a while. Next thing you know, knock, get out. So,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're like, okay, but like the way that he tells the story is so animated, like it's just those conversations, and it's that history also that needs to continue through those conversations with our veterans as well.
Definitely. And I guess one last thing, Vicky, as well, is like we haven't just supported Australian veterans. You know, we've supported New Zealanders, we've supported British, Canadian. Like we've had a different flurry of veterans. So you know, if a veteran finds themselves over in Australia and needs the assistance, you know, we're happy to provide that
We're
too.
there, yeah.
And if you ever find having a veteran that needs assistance, or even yourself, you know, we're available. And it's just as simple as getting in contact with either Beck or I, and we can obviously have a chat to that veteran one-on-one, be like, you know, what's your situation, what we can do to support you.
For sure. Tiff and Laura, is there any questions that you girls have, or?
No, not really. I've actually found it really insightful to see everything about what you've been through and all of that. And I wouldn't have agree about PTSD, but that's probably the major like wars we're talking about that we'll experience. But I shouldn't have thought straight away like that. But yeah, I feel bad now.
Oh, look, as I said, you know, you don't know what you don't know. As I said, it's an educational thing. Like it relates to all situations where PTSD is such a broad thing, and there's people that have never gone over to wars that have suffered PTSD from certain things. You know, when I watched the Afghanistan theater, I guess fall apart, I remember back and just felt sad knowing that everyone that we'd helped there are now obviously in this situation. So PTSD is measured in such a different way. Like it can be, it's such a broad range, but as I said, the rate of people with PTSD is quite low in defence. It's very minimal, but as I said, the one thing I can reiterate is just treat them like anyone else, because you'd hate to be like, hey, Matt's got PTSD, be careful what you say around him. It just makes them feel uncomfortable. So it's
I think the only reason I thought like that, it was, well, my great-grandfather's no longer here, but his father was also in the war, but my grandfather couldn't go, and he was around 18 at the time, all because of a deformity of a toe.
Yeah.
So they did not let him through, but he was experiencing like the hardships being involved. My nana was not in it, but she was only like probably a toddler around the time of the war as well. So it was like down the family history. You can see
intergenerational trauma.
Was there, because even my dad now, he will not talk about my great uncle and all that actually one died in France. Then he got injured and then ended up going back and ended up being dead, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But my dad said he won't talk about it. But all I said, I can understand why you don't want to talk about it, but it's like a family history you don't want like to be hidden as well. Because it's been, he died in war, but he died to protect our country. That's how I see it as.
Oh, definitely. And you know, if you want to talk about the experience like you are today.
Unfortunately, I don't know the experience. That's why I try to learn off my dad, and my dad, so I say his information, go for it. I'm like, okay.
I think a big one for you is if you ever do want to get a really good grasp of some of the history and that, go to the War Memorial. That has an exhibition of the First and Second World War.
We actually have a lunch and learn with the War Memorial on Thursday about keeping the records.
Yep.
So like key in with them when we have that session and ask all
it
all
would
the
be
questions
great
that you can.
because
So
that theme, I know family had passed away. I don't know what war, but they're in France, and it would be great to get that information.
You can even ask questions about, you know, you can go for the memorial to find out who your uncle was or great uncle was and find out their service number, where they even passed away in. So like being there, you'll
One
get
of
the
them
opportunity to ask
passed
some
away
questions.
actually in France, and his body is still in France till this day.
Yeah.
If you find out his service number, Tiff, you'll find out everything else about where he was enlisted, where he was deployed to, any health things that he had whilst during his service. I've actually had the ability to find my great grandfather's one from when he was serving in Burma. So yeah, it's amazing the stuff that you find out.
That's what I mean, because my dad's got some information, but it's so little, and like I said, there's a lot more information, and I know it's like him, but
And
we
you
don't
know
got the
something,
service number,
just
but that'd be great to find out.
Sorry, to add, just to finish on what Matt had said too, is what SoldierOn's trying to do too, and in conversations like this is, and with the Royal Commission happening, is we're trying to turn the image of the modern soldier into uplift instead of broken wing. You know, let's look at, much like the Aborigines and Torres Strait, what is their story that we can share that shines a light on them in all the fantastic things that they have to offer the community and in that diversity of the community. And that is what that community has asked for, that story to be told. You know, for too long, like Matt has said, we thought, oh, everybody suffers from post-traumatic, and, you know, they're all don't want to talk about their experiences, and they're encouraged not to talk about their experiences, where we're trying to move people, and SoldierOn's not the only organisation to do that, that sharing your experience is good for your soul and good for your soul too, Tiff, you know. And it may be that's only parts of the story that you get, but it's almost relief, and that failure is okay with some of it as well too, is, you know, moving forward to it. So part of the big job that Matt and I are doing is working with organisations in, let's shine a light and let's uplift the Defence Force, the transitioning, because they have this amazing story, great narrative, great stories for, you know, to write essays on at uni as well. Great soft skills, great leadership skills. So let's turn the story around, and let's do it that way for a while and see, you know, and because Defence still needs people to serve too. So we want to encourage people into Defence as well.
One way they'll encourage people is if they actually didn't give them the PFA requirements before they go for it. Because I went for my PFA last year, and like I saw that the Navy didn't even have a single set up on there, and yet I got 48, and I'm like, how is that fair? And they're changing the PFA requirements all the time, so yeah.
Boy, the changing dynamic.
Anyway, but thanks for giving us the opportunity. I hope that was insightful, what we've shared with you guys today. And as we say, you know, it doesn't cost anything to be registered as a participant for SoldierOn as well. So if there's veterans in your community, Vicky, that could do with an extra helping hand or want to look at the opportunities that we have, or that social connections, and some of the stuff we do is really, really great too, then please, reach out to Matt and myself, and we have a social connection, 3 social connections people in Sydney now that are offering things, because Sydney's that more challenging city where geographically it's harder, so we've sort of divided the city up to make it easier access to things as well. So
well, thank you so much for your time today, Beck and Matt. We really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Thank you for having us.
Pleasure. Have a good, what are we up to? Tuesday afternoon, and good ANZAC day too going forward.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. You have a great day.